The stars looked different from the observation deck of the U.S. Dauntless. Captain Jack Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the vast emptiness of space. Jupiter loomed large in the viewport, its swirling storms a backdrop to humanity's first deep space mission beyond Mars. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Grace Howard from her station. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were wide. "Multiple objects approaching from Sector 7. They're moving too fast to be natural." Miller turned sharply. "Asteroids?" "No, sir. They're changing direction. Deliberately." The bridge fell silent. After centuries of wondering, humanity was about to get its answer. They were not alone. "Battle stations?" asked Commander Peter Boyd, his hand hovering over the alarm. Miller shook his head. "No. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already." He took a deep breath. "Open all communication channels. Let's say hello." The objects slowed as they approached, revealing themselves to be sleek vessels with curved hulls that shimmered with an iridescent glow. They moved with impossible grace, forming a perfect circle around the human ship. "We're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Samantha Reed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she worked her console. I think they're trying to speak English." A voice filled the bridge, strangely musical with odd pauses between words. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We come in peace." 3 hours later, Miller sat across from a being that called itself Ambassador Zextrol of the Araxian species. The alien had 4 arms, light blue skin, and large, unblinking eyes. They met in the Dauntless conference room, the first official meeting between humanity and an alien civilization. "We have watched your kind for many centuries," said Zextrol, its voice now smoother after its translation device adjusted to human speech patterns. "Your civilization has reached the point where isolation is no longer beneficial." "You've been watching us?" asked Miller, trying to hide his shock. "All developing worlds are observed. It is protocol. We do not interfere until a species reaches deep space travel independently." The ambassador's large eyes blinked slowly. "That moment came when your vessel passed the orbital line of your red planet." Dr. Ellie Winters, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned forward. "Are there many species out there?" "The Galactic Confederation includes 27 spacefaring civilizations," answered Zextrol. "There are others who choose not to join, and some who oppose us." Miller caught something in the alien's tone. "Oppose you? You mean you have enemies?" The ambassador hesitated. "The galaxy is not unlike your Earth's political landscape. There are alliances, neutral parties, and yes, conflicts. The Drekthar Empire has been in disagreement with the Confederation for many cycles." "Disagreement," repeated Miller. "You mean war. A Cold War, as you would term it. Limited engagements, nothing that would concern Earth." The ambassador's 4 hands made a gesture that might have been reassurance. "The Confederation offers Earth protection as you develop your technology, a protectorate status." Later that night, after the Araxians returned to their ship with promises of further talks, Miller couldn't sleep. He stood again at the observation window, watching the alien vessels shimmer against Jupiter's clouds. "Something bothering you, Jack?" Dr. Winters joined him, her clipboard clutched to her chest. "They traveled hundreds of light years to find us, right after we venture beyond Mars." Miller shook his head. "Seems convenient. You think they're lying about watching us?" "No, I think they're not telling us everything." He pointed to the largest Araxian ship. "Look at those scorch marks on the hull. Those aren't old." Winters squinted. "You think they're at war?" "Actually at war. I think," said Miller slowly, "that we need to be careful about what kind of galaxy we're stepping into." Back on their flagship, Ambassador Zextrol communicated with the Confederation Council. "The humans have been contacted as ordered." "What is your assessment?" asked High Counselor Vexmon. "They are primitive in technology, but remarkably adaptable. Their history is filled with warfare. They have gone from simple flight to space travel in less than 200 years. And their military potential. Zextrel's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of discomfort. Concerning. They fight differently than any species I have studied. They do not follow predictable patterns. Perfect, said the High Counselor. The Drekthar advance continues. We need unpredictable allies. Council Elder, I must advise caution. If we pull them into our war, we need soldiers, Ambassador. We need innovation. The humans will provide both. As the connection ended, Zextral looked out at the small human vessel. The ambassador felt something unusual, a feeling that bringing humans into galactic politics might change everything forever. 3 years had passed since first contact. The skyline of Washington, D.C. now included an Araxian embassy, a tall spiral building that glowed blue at night. Humans had grown used to seeing aliens walking their streets, though the novelty had not fully worn off. Susan Carter adjusted her formal jacket as she prepared to enter the High Council chamber on Araxis Prime, the Confederation capital world. As Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Confederation, she carried the hopes of humanity on her shoulders. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her expression serious as she reviewed her notes one final time. Nervous? Asked her aide, Greg Nelson. Always am before these meetings, she replied. The council members still look at us like we're children playing with matches. The massive doors swung open to reveal a circular room with raised platforms. 20 different alien species sat in their designated areas, their forms ranging from nearly human to utterly bizarre. The Araxians occupied the central platform, their 4 arms moving in graceful gestures as they spoke. Carter took her seat in the smallest section. Earth's newly granted observer status didn't warrant much space. As the meeting progressed through trade agreements and border disputes, she noticed 2 Confederation military officials speaking quietly behind their translation devices. Carter had learned enough of the Araxian language to catch phrases without the translator. Human military potential, acceptable casualties, weapon adaptability. She pretended to check her tablet while straining to hear more. Their planet must be protected, but outlying colonies could be. Strategic value if the Drekthar. Carter's blood ran cold. They were talking about sacrificing human colonies for some military purpose. Meanwhile, on Earth's lunar base Alpha, Lieutenant Alan Reyes was having his own disturbing discovery. Working night shift in the Joint Human Araxian Intelligence Center, he noticed odd data requests coming through the system. Someone was downloading massive amounts of information about Earth's military history, specifically focusing on guerrilla warfare, asymmetric conflicts, and situations where technologically inferior forces had defeated superior ones. Computer, who authorized these data transfers? He asked. Classified access code. Araxian High Command. The system replied. Reyes frowned. Why would the peaceful Confederation be so interested in human warfare? He copied the access logs to his personal device before reporting to his superior the next morning. Colonel Diane Powell listened to his findings in silence, her weathered face giving away nothing. You did right bringing this to me, she said finally. She pulled out a secure tablet and showed him something that made his eyes widen. I've been tracking similar patterns. Look at these Confederation ship movements. The display showed alien vessels taking positions near key human outposts. They're setting up defensive positions, asked Reyes. Or staging areas, said Powell. And look at these supply requisitions. Military-grade materials, enough for a fleet. But we're not at war with anyone. We might be soon. Powell's voice was grim. And I don't think we're being told about it. Back on Araxis Prime, Ambassador Carter was making her way through the Grand Archives, a privilege rarely granted to new species. Her official purpose was cultural research, but she had other plans. With careful movements, she accessed terminal after terminal, building a picture of Confederation military activities. What she found confirmed her fears. The Drekthar Empire had been pushing deeper into Confederation space for years. The Araxians were losing their war and desperately needed new allies. Carter was about to download more information when alarms blared throughout the complex. An emergency broadcast appeared on all screens. Mars colony was under attack. On the screen, strange ships with sharp, angular designs unlike the Confederation vessels fired upon the human settlement. Buildings crumbled as defense shields failed. An Araxian official rushed to her side. "Ambassador, the Drekthar have attacked your colony. They believe it houses a secret Confederation military base." "There is no military base on Mars," Carter said, her voice shaking with anger. "It's a scientific outpost with 10,000 civilians." "This changes everything," the Araxian said. "Earth must now join the war effort. The protection agreement activates automatically." As the official hurried away, Carter realized the truth. There had never been a protection agreement, only a recruitment plan. Humanity had been deceived from the very beginning, maneuvered into a war they didn't know existed. And now it was too late to back out. The United Earth Government building in Geneva buzzed with angry voices. 1 month after the attack on Mars colony, world leaders gathered to decide humanity's response. The Mars death toll had reached 3,000, with thousands more injured. "We have no choice but to fight," said President Laura Wade, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "The Drekthar now know we exist. If we don't join the Confederation, we face the Empire alone." Admiral Frank Johnson stood before the assembly, pointing to holographic star charts. At 55, Johnson had spent his life in Earth's Navy before taking command of humanity's first proper space fleet. "Our ships are ready," he said. "The U.S. Intrepid will lead our fleet. With Confederation upgrades, our vessels can now match Drekthar technology, though we're still outnumbered." Ambassador Carter spoke next, her words careful. "The Confederation has promised to share all military technology if we commit our forces. They seem desperate for our help." "Of course they're desperate," muttered Colonel Powell from her seat. "They're losing." 2 weeks later, Admiral Johnson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Intrepid, watching as his fleet of 30 Earth ships joined a Confederation battle group near Alpha Centauri. The alien vessels were bigger and more elegant than the human ships, which were bulky and practical by comparison. "Admiral, the Confederation commander requests your presence for battle planning," said his communications officer. Johnson found himself in a strange room with 6 alien commanders. Commander Zelvac, a tall Araxian with facial markings denoting high rank, outlined their strategy using a 3-dimensional star map. "Your fleet will take position here," said Zelvac, pointing to a spot directly in the projected path of the Drekthar forces. "You will hold your formation exactly as shown, no matter what happens." Johnson studied the plan with growing concern. "This puts my ships in the direct line of fire with no support." "It is standard Confederation doctrine," replied Zelvac stiffly. "It has been our approach for 10,000 years." "And how many battles have you won recently with this doctrine?" Johnson asked. The alien commanders exchanged uncomfortable glances. 3 days later, the Drekthar fleet appeared exactly where predicted. Johnson watched as the Confederation ships formed their perfect, symmetrical formation, beautiful, orderly, and completely inflexible. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "Confederation command orders us to hold position." The battle began, and Johnson quickly saw the problem. The Drekthar didn't fight according to the Confederation's expectations. They targeted weak points, changed tactics mid-battle, and focused fire on communication ships. "This is madness," Johnson said as he watched a Confederation battle group get decimated. "They're fighting by the book, and the enemy read the book centuries ago." He made his decision. "All Earth ships, break formation. Execute Battle Plan Delta." The human ships suddenly scattered, confusing both their allies and enemies. Instead of holding position, they began quick hit-and-run attacks against Drekthar support vessels. "Sir, Confederation Command is demanding we return to position," shouted his communications officer. "Tell them we're experiencing translation difficulties," Johnson replied calmly. "All ships continue targeting enemy supply vessels and engines." The human tactic worked. The Drekthar formation, designed to counter the predictable Confederation approach, fell into disarray when faced with the chaotic human attack pattern. When the battle ended, the Drekthar had retreated. It wasn't a major victory, but it was the first time in years the Confederation hadn't lost ground. On the Confederation command ship, Commander Zelvac stared at Admiral Johnson with all four eyes unblinking. "You disobeyed direct orders," said the alien. "You abandoned 10,000 years of proven battle doctrine. 10,000 years of doctrine that's failing against an enemy who knows your every move," Johnson replied. "Sometimes you need to change the rules." Another alien commander moved forward, this one from a species Johnson didn't recognize. It spoke slowly through its translator. "Interesting. The humans fight differently." The alien's skin changed color slightly. "Perhaps that is exactly what we need." Johnson left the meeting with mixed feelings. The Confederation was clearly desperate enough to tolerate his disobedience. But as he looked at the reports from Mars and thought about Earth being dragged into this war, he wondered what humanity might become if they embraced their role as the galaxy's new warriors. 6 months into the war, the Confederation High Command gathered in their central war room. The mood was different now. For the first time in decades, they had won several battles. The reason for this change sat at the far end of the table. Patricia Garcia, a human woman with short gray hair and intense eyes. "This is unacceptable," said High Commander Voxnar, slamming all four hands on the table. "Guerrilla tactics, ambushes, fake retreats, these methods lack honor." Garcia remained calm. "With respect, Commander, honor doesn't matter if your civilization is destroyed. Results matter." "She has a point," said another alien leader, this one with scales and a long neck. "The humans have helped us win 3 major battles using these dishonorable methods." High Commander Voxnar reluctantly nodded. Garcia had been appointed as humanity's representative on the War Council after Admiral Johnson's success. Now she was changing everything about how the Confederation fought. Meanwhile, in a research lab on Earth's moon, Dr. Kevin Wright led a team of human and alien scientists. Pieces of captured Drekthar technology covered the tables. "Their shield systems use a fixed frequency," Wright explained to the group. "That's why they've worked against Confederation weapons for so long. But if we build weapons that change frequency rapidly..." An Araxian scientist named Helvar watched with growing excitement. "It would bypass their shields completely. But our weapon designs haven't changed in 500 years. "That's the problem," Wright said. "Both sides have been stuck in the same patterns for too long. We need to mix human and alien tech to create something new." 2 weeks later, the first hybrid weapons were installed on the U.S. Intrepid. Admiral Johnson watched as his tactical officer tested the system. "Target lock achieved," said the officer. "The frequency shift is working perfectly." Johnson nodded. "Prepare 10 more ships with the new weapons. We'll test them at the Battle for Proxima Station." In another part of the galaxy, a different kind of human innovation was making its mark. Major Lisa Thompson led a small team of 7 human Special Forces soldiers. They wore advanced stealth suits that combined Confederation invisibility tech with human combat design. "Remember the mission," Thompson told her team as their small ship approached a massive Drekthar command station. "Get in, download their fleet positions, get out. No unnecessary combat." The alien station was enormous, with thousands of Drekthar soldiers. Yet Thompson's team moved through it like ghosts. When they had to fight, they used quick, silent takedowns instead of the direct confrontations the Confederation soldiers preferred. 4 hours later, they escaped with the data. Not a single alarm had been triggered. When they returned to Confederation space, the alien military leaders were shocked. 7 humans, asked Commander Zelvac in disbelief. "Our best Special Forces unit tried this mission with 300 soldiers last year. They all died." Thompson shrugged. Sometimes smaller is better. And we don't announce our presence like your forces do. The stolen data revealed the position of the Drekthar main fleet, information the Confederation had sought for years. Back in the War Council, Garcia presented new battle plans that incorporated human military history. The Drekthar expect you to attack in formation, she explained. Instead, we'll use what we call a feint, a fake attack here, drawing their main forces away from their real weakness. Deception in battle, asked a jellyfish-like alien commander. That seems wrong. Deception keeps soldiers alive, Garcia replied. And it wins wars. As human influence spread through the Confederation military, the alien leaders began to see results they hadn't thought possible. Ships now moved in unpredictable patterns. Soldiers trained in human combat techniques. Engineers built weapons that changed and adapted. For the first time, the Drekthar began to lose ground. Their commanders, used to fighting the predictable Confederation, couldn't understand what had changed. What had changed was humanity. A species that evolved through constant warfare had joined the fight, bringing with them something the galaxy had never seen: innovation on the battlefield. And deep in Drekthar space, their military leaders began to ask a troubling question. What kind of species were these humans, who treated war not as a formal exchange of power, but as a problem to be solved by any means necessary? Captain Victor Ramirez stood on the bridge of the Confederation cruiser Hope's Dawn. He was the first human to command an alien ship with a mixed crew. The blue-skinned Araxians and tentacled Morax worked alongside humans at their stations. 1 year into the war, such mixed crews were becoming common. Captain, Drekthar ships detected at the edge of the system, reported his Araxian sensor officer. Ramirez nodded. Battle stations, remember your training. The alien crew members moved with purpose, but not in the rigid formations they once used. They had been trained in human naval tactics, focusing on adaptability and initiative rather than strict protocols. Across the galaxy, other human captains like Olivia Martinez led similar ships. The Confederation fleet was changing, becoming more flexible, more unpredictable. On the Drekthar command ship, Fleet Commander Grozek watched recordings of recent battles with growing concern. They fight differently now, he told his war council. The Confederation ships move in patterns we cannot predict. It is the humans, said his intelligence officer. This small species has changed how our enemy fights. They adapt mid-battle. They use tricks and deception. Grozek's eyes narrowed. Then we must remove this new variable. We will attack their homeworld directly. 3 weeks later, alarm sirens blared throughout Earth's solar system. The largest Drekthar fleet ever seen had jumped into the outer system near Neptune. Over 300 warships moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Admiral Johnson rushed to the command center on Luna Base. Status report. Massive enemy fleet approaching, sir, said his officer. They've bypassed our outer defenses. We count at least 300 ships, including their flagship. Johnson's face grew grim. The Confederation fleet was scattered across multiple fronts. Earth had only 40 ships for defense, plus the orbital platforms. Send the call to all available ships, he ordered. And contact Earth. Begin civilian evacuations to the underground shelters. The Battle of Neptune began 2 days later. Human ships, though outnumbered 7-1, fought with desperate creativity. They used the rings of Neptune for cover, set traps using mining explosives, and focused fire on enemy communication ships. But it wasn't enough. Hour by hour, the Drekthar pushed closer to Earth. Johnson watched from the bridge of the Intrepid as 3 more human ships exploded. Sir, said his communications officer, her voice shaking. We've lost the Jefferson and the Cairo. Our forward line is breaking. Johnson closed his eyes briefly. Hold position. We can't let them reach Earth. Just as all seemed lost, a transmission came through. Admiral, this is Colonel Powell. Help has arrived. A new ship appeared at the edge of the battle, unlike any vessel Johnson had seen before. It was smaller than a battleship but moved with incredible speed. "What is that?" Johnson asked. "The project I've been working on," Powell replied. "The displacement field generator is ready for testing." The new ship accelerated toward the center of the Drekthar fleet. As it approached the massive enemy flagship, it activated its weapon. Space itself seemed to bend and distort around the Drekthar ships. Metal twisted and warped as localized gravity fields tore through the enemy fleet. The flagship broke apart, followed by dozens of surrounding vessels. The remaining Drekthar ships, seeing their command destroyed by a weapon they couldn't understand, broke formation and retreated in disarray. After the battle, footage of the new weapon spread throughout the galaxy. For the first time, fear appeared in official Drekthar communications. In his palace on the Drekthar homeworld, Emperor Xor watched the battle recordings with growing alarm. "What manner of species creates such a weapon?" he asked his advisors. "One that distorts the fabric of space itself." His military advisor stepped forward. "Humans approach war differently than any species we have encountered in our 1,000-year history. They do not follow patterns. They adapt constantly. And most disturbing, they seem to become more effective when facing overwhelming odds." The Emperor stood from his throne. "We must reconsider our approach to this war. These humans have changed everything." 2 years into the war, Ambassador Susan Carter walked through the grand halls of the neutral planet Siluria. Here, representatives from dozens of species gathered away from the conflict. Carter had come with a different approach than the traditional Confederation diplomats. "Your proposal is most unusual," said the tall, plant-like representative from the Florian Collective. "Meeting with us separately, outside official channels." Carter smiled. "Sometimes the best conversations happen away from formal settings." While Confederation diplomats followed ancient protocols, formal declarations, scheduled meetings, ceremonial language, Carter and her human team took a different path. They invited neutral species to casual dinners. They learned about cultural interests. They listened more than they spoke. Within months, 3 previously neutral species had aligned with the Confederation, not through ultimatums or threats, but through relationships Carter had built. In a secure meeting room, Carter met with an unlikely contact, a Drekthar provincial governor named Krell. "What you suggest is treason," Krell said quietly, his scaled face showing concern. "The Emperor would have me executed." "But you agree the war is destroying your people?" Carter asked. "Yes," admitted Krell. "Our outer provinces suffer. Food shortages grow worse. The Emperor cares only for military glory." Carter leaned forward. "On Earth, we have a concept called self-determination, the right of a people to choose their own government." Krell's eyes widened. "Such thoughts are forbidden. Yet you're thinking them now," Carter said gently. 2 weeks later, the Outer Rim provinces of the Drekthar Empire declared independence. It was unprecedented in their 1,000-year history. Soon, other provinces followed. In the Confederation War Council, anger erupted when Carter's secret meetings were revealed. "You had no authority to speak with enemy officials," shouted High Commander Voxnar. "Diplomatic protocols exist for a reason." "Those protocols haven't worked for centuries," Garcia replied, standing beside Carter. "While you've been sending formal demands, we've been creating cracks in the Empire from within." The Galactic Council watched in alarm as humans achieved in months what the Confederation couldn't accomplish in centuries. The once unified Drekthar Empire began to fracture as concepts like freedom and self-government spread. Admiral Johnson studied the star maps in the war room. The Confederation High Command had drafted plans for a final massive assault on the Drekthar homeworld. This attack would cause billions of civilian casualties, he told his officers. "That's unacceptable." "But it would end the war," said an Araxian commander. "The Confederation Council has approved the plan." Johnson shook his head. "There's a better way." He contacted Carter, and together, they prepared an alternative plan. When the Confederation leadership gathered to finalize the attack, Johnson and Carter made their move. We have been in direct contact with Drekthar separatists, Carter announced to the shocked council. They control 30% of the Empire's military now. They've agreed to support targeted strikes against military installations only. This is a breach of protocol, shouted a council member. But it would save billions of lives, Johnson replied. And it would leave a stable government afterward, instead of chaos. The council erupted in arguments. Some species were outraged at the human interference in established procedures. Others saw the wisdom in the alternative approach. First you changed how we fight, said Commander Zelvac. Now you change how we make peace. Your species has upset 10,000 years of galactic stability. Carter met his 4 eyes without flinching. Perhaps stability isn't always progress. Across the galaxy, other species began questioning whether involving humans had been a mistake. The ancient Volrene, who had observed galactic politics for millennia without interfering, sent a rare message to the Confederation Council. The introduction of humans has altered the fundamental balance. Their methods spread like a virus across cultures. We cautioned restraint before further integration of human approaches. But it was too late. The ideas had already spread. Younger members of all species began adopting human concepts, human technologies, human ways of thinking. The very foundations of galactic society were shifting, and the war itself was changing from a traditional conflict into something new, a battle of ideas that the rigid Drekthar Empire was unprepared to fight. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a message. 3 years after humans entered the conflict, the Drekthar Emperor's palace broadcast an unexpected announcement across all galactic channels. The central government of the Drekthar recognizes the independence of the Outer Rim provinces, said a tired-looking official. The Emperor has agreed to step down. A new council will govern what remains of our territory. Throughout Confederation space, celebrations erupted. A war that had lasted decades was suddenly over. The mighty Drekthar Empire had collapsed from within. In the halls of the Galactic Council, representatives gathered for an emergency session. The mood was not entirely celebratory. Elder species who had remained neutral during the conflict requested special speaking rights. The ancient Volrene representative, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal shell, floated to the center of the chamber. We have observed the galaxy for 50,000 years, the Volrene said, its voice echoing strangely. Never have we witnessed such rapid change. In merely 3 years, humans have transformed warfare, diplomacy, and now the very structure of galactic society. Ambassador Carter sat with Admiral Johnson and other human representatives. Once considered minor players, they now commanded respect from species that had been spacefaring when humans still lived in caves. The humans were not at fault, said Commander Zelvac, surprising everyone. We of the Confederation brought them into our war without full disclosure. We must take responsibility. An elder Araxian named Vexkel stepped forward. This is why we have called this session, to establish new protocols that will prevent such manipulation in the future. Carter stood and walked to the speaking platform. All eyes turned to her. Humanity did not want this war, she said simply. We were deceived, our colony attacked, our hand forced. But once involved, we could not help but fight it the only way we know how. She gestured to the star map showing the former Drekthar Empire, now divided into independent regions. We come from a world of constant change, constant conflict. Our history is full of war, yes, but also of finding new ways forward. What looks like chaos to you is simply our way of solving problems. The council chamber fell silent as Carter proposed a new galactic charter. Its first provision: no species could be drawn into conflicts without full knowledge and consent. Its second: elder species must share technology equally with younger ones, preventing the imbalances that had led to the war. After weeks of debate, the charter passed. As the council session ended, a new installation was placed in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. A simple metal plaque with words in multiple languages. In human English, it read, "Warning: do not involve humans in galactic wars." And below in smaller text, "They will not fight the way you expect, and nothing will ever be the same again." Later that day, Ambassador Zex Troll, who had first contacted humanity years before, stood with another Araxian looking at the plaque. "Do you think the warning will be heeded?" asked the younger diplomat. "For the sake of the galaxy, it must be," replied Zex Troll. "We unleashed something we did not understand. A species that turns chaos into advantage and transforms faster than any before them. The humans did not merely join our war. They changed how war itself is waged." Outside the council building, Admiral Johnson and Ambassador Carter boarded a shuttle back to Earth. The blue-green planet appeared on their view screen as they approached. "Do you think we've changed too much?" Carter asked quietly. "Becoming the galaxy's warriors wasn't what we planned when we looked to the stars." Johnson watched his homeworld grow larger in the viewport. "We didn't start as warriors. We were forced into that role. But maybe now we can show them what humans are truly capable of in times of peace." As their shuttle descended toward Earth, news broadcasts throughout the galaxy discussed the human factor that had transformed a centuries-old conflict in just 3 years. Some spoke with fear, others with admiration. But all agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same again. And on thousands of worlds, beings of all kinds looked up at their night skies with new understanding. Among those countless stars lived a young species called humans. And if they were wise, they would remember the warning.